Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our city council meeting. I'd ask everyone to please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Griffin.
Here.
Councilmember Ward.
Here.
Councilmember Zimmer.
Here.
Councilmember Dewey.
Here.
Councilmember Gibbons. Here. Councilmember Litzo. Here. Councilmember Sears.
Here.
Thank you. And Kim, we thank you for filling in tonight. Kim Sansagar, our deputy city clerk, is filling in for our city clerk, Laurie Eschy. We have two public hearings tonight. The first is a request for a mixed-use development plan in the B2 zoning district at 300 North Kirkwood Road for a 60-unit apartment complex with commercial development on the ground floor. Mr. Hessel, do you wish to enter any exhibits into the record?
I would, Mayor. I'd offer as Exhibit 1 the affidavit of publication verifying that notice of this public hearing appeared in the St. Louis County. Exhibit 2 is the affidavit of publication verifying notice of public hearing appeared in the Webster Kirkwood Times. Exhibit 3 is the viewer map showing the property that is the subject of the public hearing as well as surrounding properties. Exhibit 4 is a list of property owners to whom notice of this hearing has been sent. Exhibit 5 is the report of the Planning and Zoning Commission dated September 8, 2022, which the commission recommended approval of a mixed-use development plan in B2 at 300 North Kirkwood Road for a 60-unit apartment complex with commercial development on the ground floor. Exhibit 6 is a subcommittee report of the Planning and Zoning Commission dated September 7th, 2022. And Exhibit 7 is the Code of Ordinances of the City of Kirkwood.
Thank you, John. Mr. Hawes, who will present this to the city council?
That will be City Planner 2, Amy Lowry.
Amy?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Yes, tonight this is a public hearing for a development at 300 North Kirkwood Road for a mixed-use project with a B2 development plan. The subject site's at the northeast corner of Kirkwood Road and Adams Avenue, where the site of the current Commerce Bank is. Some photos of the existing conditions, which may be a couple months old because they are starting work on the northern site. So as the site plan shows, the bank right now is under construction at this site. The bank building will remain there until the new bank is open, so they won't demolish the existing one until after the new bank is open. The property consists of a little bit over 2 acres. It was subdivided in October 2020 into the 2 lots, with the northern lot consisting of about 0.74 acres for the new Commerce Bank, and the southern lot is about 1.44 acres. The proposal for the southern lot is a 4-story, 94,051 square foot mixed use building with about 5,365 square feet of commercial space on the first floor fronting on Kirkwood Road, and 60 residential units on the top 2 floors. There'll also be a mixture of under roof and at grade parking in the rear of the commercial space. I said the ground level will be about 5,300 square feet of commercial, office, and retail use. The open air parking structure has 3 points of entry from this access aisle from Adams. And cross traffic will be able to go to the Commerce Bank site and then through to Washington Avenue. The building height is just under 60 feet, but that's to the top of the parapet wall, which is a flat roof in the southwest corner of the building. And under section 2534 I4, City Council can establish a specific list of non-residential uses that they'd allow in this mixed use building. If you do not come up with such a list, then the permitted uses would be governed by the uses that are already allowed in the B2 district regulations. So that if that's something that you want to add to this resolution, then that will need to be done. The property meets development meets all of the setbacks, and the FAR for this district is 2.5. So they are well under the maximum amount of building allowed. There are 110 parking spaces provided. Based on the city's shared parking table, they would only be required 108, so they're meeting that. They're providing the 14 bike racks that are required. And we did receive a traffic trip generation memo that counted 42 site trips in the AM peak hour and 62 site trips in the PM peak hour from this property. And these conclusions were accepted by the city engineer that the development would have minimal impact on the roadways and the adjacent intersections and wouldn't warrant any roadway improvements. As I said, there's 60 apartments, 20 per floor, mixed between 1 bedroom, which they will have 10, 2 bedroom, 36, and 3 bedroom, 14 units. And on the second floor is a pool amenity deck of about 7,800 square feet. Then third floor, fourth floor. This is a rendering that was provided. The architecture will have to be approved by the Architecture Review Board. And just views of the other 3 elevations. They did provide a landscape plan that exceeds the minimum for our requirements in many instances, including along this northern property line. But city staff believes these additional proposed trees are appropriate and encourage the retention of them. And the lighting plan does meet our requirements as long as the lighting fixtures proposed are installed in a downlight configuration. The City Planning and Zoning Commission did approve this unanimously. And if you have any questions about this proposal, I'd be happy to answer. And the applicant is here as well.
Thank you. Does the applicant wish to say anything or make a presentation? And we'll let you do that first before we go to questions, please.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of council, Mr. Hessel. For the record, my name is George Stock, and I'm with Stock and Associates Consulting Engineers. Our address is 257 Chesterfield Business Parkway. It's my pleasure to be here this evening on behalf of Intrinsic Development. Joining me this evening is Mr. Brian Maynard, who is Vice President of Development, Mr. Eric Miller with PW Architects, the project architect, Joe Fisher with Stock and Associates, the project manager, and then Jack Carmetti, who's also with Intrinsic Development. So we're here available to answer any questions that you may have this evening. First of all, I'd like to thank Ms. Lowry and staff. This is a project that's been in the works for several months. It was several months ago when we came in, met with staff, introduced the project, went through the B2 zoning district, outlined the plan forward to have a plan that's generally in compliance with one design exception, which is really the landscaping along the east property line, which that exception we're asking for is the same that was asked for the Commerce Bank. So I believe we're consistent in that manner. Intrinsic Development or Inenti, they are the owner of the property. So currently Commerce leases from them. They acquired this property. And as Ms. Lowry indicated, this project moves forward with approval of the City Council, approval all permits, and completion of the new Commerce Bank. So that bank has to be completed, open before the demolition would occur on this particular site. Ms. Lowry outlined what our request is. It's 60 market rate apartments on top of approximately 5,600 square foot of retail. The streetscape design on both North Kirkwood Road and Adams is in accordance with the city's guidelines. The parking is in compliance. The height is in compliance. The FAR is in compliance. So we bring forward a plan that we think is consistent with the comprehensive plan, the goals and objectives of the city of Kirkwood, and would ask your consideration. As I mentioned, we're all here to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, George. Council have questions? I'll start with Councilmember Ward.
I have a question for your architect.
Yes, sir.
My name is Eric Miller. I'm with PW Architects, offices at 2120 Foreign Boulevard in Columbia, Missouri.
For appearing with us, Eric. A question, I understand this is just, I guess, a temporary architectural concept.
This is our initial concept, yes.
Could you speak to us how the goals of the owners or the developer are being met by that style? Or what drove your concept architecturally?
Well, I think one of the things that this owner in particular, and we're working on several projects together, is looking into diversity of materials and textures. Certainly, one of the things that we really look forward to, it's been really nice to work with staff up to this point. And we're excited about working with staff on the architectural review as well. Again, this is our first concept, but within that, there could be changes to materials, and certainly the colors of this are not set in stone right now.
Mhm. So the idea of contemporary kind of architecture would exist regardless of the
This
material.
is something that I think certainly styles, modern styles that we have offer a variety of materials and textures.
Mhm.
And when you start to look at the lengthy facades that we have in some instances, you do your best to try to break those up visually so that it's not something that's superimposing as far as the ground is concerned.
The other thing, there, I didn't notice any internal green space or gathering space on that, in this particular project. Is that?
Can we move back to one of the side plans? Yeah, so actually the second floor, and you can kind of see on the right, I apologize, I don't have a pointer. But there's a pool amenity that, thank you. This is an large open deck and pool amenity that is concept right now. Obviously, this is going to be filled with tables, chairs, patrons, and probably a lot of potted greenery on there as well.
Okay. Thank you. That's it.
Let's go to Councilmember Zimmer next.
Thank you. I appreciate the fact that you all reviewed the code and brought us something that fits within our existing code. I think that's very much appreciated. Thank you for doing your homework on that. You mentioned 60 apartments. Is that correct? Was there any consideration for, say, one floor as condominiums? Were there other concepts that you all looked at when designing this versus just strictly apartments?
I think the answer is no on the condominium, just market rate apartments.
All right. Well, that's all I have now. Thank you.
Councilmember Dewey, anything?
Yeah, I have a couple things. First, what are the, maybe you may not be able to answer this, but what will the rate or the range of rent?
We could probably answer that. Excuse me. I think the difficulty that you have in today's environment is the cost of construction. And so those rates aren't known as construction continues to fluctuate.
Okay. And then the bike racks, are they covered? Are they contained? Will the bikes be safe there?
Yes, they're within the lower level or the garage level of the building.
Okay, and there's walls behind them.
Well,
and all
it's
that.
open space. I mean, it's open. It's just like the vehicles and cars. I mean, they're open that you're able to get to them, but they're protected from the rain and the snow. They're, inside, but again, it's an open air garage on the first level. You don't see it from North Lindbergh, but it's visible from Adams, and the east, the north-south collector from Adams to East Washington has accessibility.
Okay, so they will remain dry, however.
Yes.
Okay. Have you given any thoughts to having electric car chargers in the parking area?
I think that's something that will be determined. I mean, it's something we give consideration all the time, that there be a number of car chargers with the, the change in automobiles. So that certainly will be considered.
Okay. And then perhaps you've heard or not, there's a lot of people that are interested in attainable housing. Have you considered allowing for some of the units to be attainable housing that
Well-
would be could be rented by people that don't have as much money,
I'm sorry, that don't have to, I didn't,
have as much money?
well, their market rate, it's not subsidized. So they're market rate apartments that will be competitive with the marketplace. So that's our plan going forward, but there's no subsidized units.
Okay, I'd love for you to think about it. That's it.
Councilmember Gibbons.
Thank you. I've got a couple of questions. One is for Amy. I know that the parking required 108 and they're going to have 110, but where does this number 86 come in? Could you explain this to us?
Oh, yeah, for the dwelling units themselves, the parking rate is 1.5 per dwelling unit, which would be 90 units,
Right.
but, or 90 spaces. But we also have a portion of our parking code that if an application can meet the required spaces with 5% less, then we do not have to, they don't have to ask for an administrative waiver or a variance. So basically our code allows 5% less than whatever is the rate. So that's where the 86 comes in. It's 5% less than the 90.
Okay.
And that's in the code.
Uh-huh.
There are also reductions for on the commercial side spaces. If they can show us up to 15% is used for restrooms, maintenance areas, storage areas, then the parking can be reduced by that 15% as well. And that's built into the parking as well, but they will have to show us that on the plans. They haven't worked out the spaces yet. And part of it is they are anticipating a restaurant. If they can't park for a restaurant, then they may have to change that to a different use.
Mhm. Okay. So it all is within code.
It is. And then we also, they're taking advantage of a shared parking table that we have that was based on recommendations that we had under the downtown plan from DPZ, that you kind of take advantage of different uses, use the parking spaces at different times of the day. So at nighttime, 100% of the use is being used by the residents having their cars parked. During the day, when they're off at work, some of those shared spaces could be for someone coming to the restaurant or to the office. So we just plug into this table. It's already kind of filled out. You plug in how much you need for residential, how much you need for commercial, and then it figures out, where's the peak time that the spaces are going to be used. And that's where we came up with 108 is at the peak time. That's how many spaces would be needed.
Great. Thank you.
You're
for
welcome.
Explaining that. I was, in looking at the plan, there's not much outdoor space available to the apartments. I think I counted maybe 12 apartments that have some kind of balcony or what have you. Is that correct?
I don't, well, first, I think, the drawing, the second floor is really the amenity space for the tenants the residents that live within the building, combination of pool and open space. I don't know the number of balconies that are on the building.
Wasn't.
So, six outdoor
Six have
balconies. Correct.
access to the outside without having to go through hallways and what
Correct.
have you. That seems, I don't know, I'm not in the rental business, so you guys, I guess, would know that better, but that seems like something that people might want is more access from their apartment. to an
Well,
outdoor
I think we
space.
can take that into consideration in the final design of the building and see. It's a good point. I don't really have a response to it other than we'll take it into consideration on
Okay.
exterior.
One of the things that we read about was that there's going to be one of the retail spaces is going to be a gym,
Fitness center.
a
That's correct.
fitness center. And this is for the residents of the apartment,
Correct.
and you're going to let the public come in and use it,
That is correct.
obviously at a cost.
That's correct. Yeah, that was a question that was raised at the planning commission. And again, I think what we're trying to do is meet the goals of the city, which is a public space, interactive public space. I mean, obviously the challenge is there's 5,600 feet. There's not a lot of it along the frontage. Parking is obviously we're within code. And so we're going to end up with a restaurant, or a small restaurant or a coffee shop, perhaps a fitness space, and then some office space as well on that. That's the plan. But that fitness center would be open to the public.
And you're aware that right behind you is the YMCA, our local YMCA, which we, does an awful lot of good things for our community, and competing with them.
Well, I don't know that we would be competing with the YMCA. I think, it's more of an amenity for the residents that are there, but it is open for the public, but it's so much smaller than what the YMCA is. It doesn't have the facilities or the classes or the things that are associated with the YMCA. So by no means is intrinsic development trying to compete with the YMCA or take memberships from the YMCA.
So really you're thinking it'll be like workout equipment that the residents would come down and use and.
Or the public. That's correct. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. One of the things that I'm concerned about is the people that are walking along Adams, where this roadway between, I call it a roadway, the access in the back of the complex.
The north-south connector between
The-
Washington and
yes.
Adams. Yes.
And when, this building is coming right up to the sidewalk, and when someone is walking going east on Adams and cars are coming out, they're not going to be able to see those cars coming out, especially like if they're coming from the other direction where the condos are set way back, they're set apart from the, a lot of feet apart from the, so I'm concerned about walkers and cars at that intersection.
Here, Liz.
You were asking along Adams?
Yes, along Adams and on, I don't know what these things are that are, they're white spaces showing in the aggregate sidewalk.
Yeah, so to address your first question, excuse me, about the visual,
Mm-hmm.
we have entry here, but this entire side and most of this elevation on the parking level are open but screened. And what I mean by that is they're security screened. You'll be able to
See a car.
Take a metal fabric that you'll be able to see through those areas. It's not solid elevation.
So basically that pedestrian that's walking east is able to see
Through
through
the,
and see the drive in the north-south.
great.
I also wanted to point out too that one of the requirements that we took into consideration in that was the addition of the lighted sidewalk all the way along the connect.
Yeah, great. Well, speaking of that area, there is a fence back there, a gorgeous, beautiful fence that was the original fence to Pittman School. And I don't know how much you know about this site, but Pittman School, we have a Pittman School graduate right here amongst us, as a matter of fact, and they are rabid about their school. It's not even there, but they love this school. I got an email wanting to know what's happening with the Pittman School flagpole. And it's going to be moved to Commerce Bank. But this fence, there's a strong desire that it stay. There's a limestone wall underneath the fence. And on the top of each pole of the fence is a finial that's an acorn. Beautiful. It's just part of Kirkwood. So
I know that there was some desire that we match the black chain link along this just to maintain something uniform. But I don't think that there's any objection to trying to save this all. When we had heard about the flag and the plaque and everything else, we had started looking into design from our side before Commerce came up and said, no, we're going to put it on our side.
that's great.
You know, I think there are things like that, especially through the architecture.
Could you park,
review.
talking to
I'm-
microphone so the people who are.
My apologies.
No, it's fine.
I think as things go along through architectural review, we're really open to these types of things and whether it would be relocating that fence to a more prominent spot or, you know, maintaining or saving that.
Mhm.
We'll do absolutely what we can.
That's fabulous. Thank you.
If you think of something, let me know. Remember Litzo.
I was wondering, so the landscape deduction along the east side is because of constraints with the driveway and
And the
the
sidewalk.
added walkway and then this chain link fence.
Yes.
And all of those trees, shrubs basically have been relocated about the site elsewhere, correct?
Well, there's a landscape plan associated with the bank and there's a landscape plan that we have as part of that. But I think the exception is that we can't plant that narrow strip in accordance with the codes because of the sidewalk and the fence. So there'll be alternative landscaping there.
So do you, I didn't see anything. This site plan is kind of too small for my eyeballs to be able to perceive it. Do you plan on sprinklering the green spaces?
Yes,
Sure that, okay.
yes, they would be
Great.
irrigated. Yes.
'Cause I'm sure you'd want to, after you invest so much money in all of that you'd want to make sure that it survives. Was wondering, as far as parking, to anticipate maybe having some sort of shared parking agreement if necessary to allow for whatever restaurant might be chosen?
I don't think, I guess we'll cross that bridge if that restaurant user, there isn't a restaurant today.
Right.
And so there's no need to have a dialogue with either the bank or another property about a shared parking.
But
I-
it could be possible with the bank because their parking is more of a 8 to 5 or whatever.
Right. It would seem reasonable, but those discussions haven't taken place because there isn't a restaurant at this time.
Right. So just to clarify, your letter of July 2022 talks about 6,000 square foot of commercial. And I did a calculation based on something or other, came up with 5,365, but it's actually closer to 5,600 square feet of commercial. Are you subtracting for like unused, unoccupied spaces, like restrooms and all of that kind of stuff?
Storage, that's correct. But, so the number's 5,365 as.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, okay. But if you were to take in the entire structure, it would be closer to 6,000 or more like 5,600?
Can you answer that, Eric, on the square footage? I know the latest is 5,365, and I think when we started the building, it may have been 6,000 square feet. As the,
I think from a ground floor perspective, we're also including these spaces,
Mm-hmm.
well, which are utility We actually, in meeting with city utilities, they wanted to be able to have covered area for meters and open access for those. So that's the inclusion of all of the enclosed space in this area.
So the actual usable space is more like 5365.
Right.
Okay.
Just to go back to one of the things that George was saying as well. Initially, as we're going through this, we're anticipating how it might be divided up or some of those things that would be preferable. Certainly, when we go in and build this building, the internal slabs will be omitted initially, so that we can put in plumbing later and accommodate those things by code. We don't really have necessarily anything in mind, and we tried to look at the worst case scenarios for what we might have for parking based on that.
Worst case, meaning you needed more parking than
Well,
anticipated.
it's unlikely that the entirety of this would be able to be a restaurant because we can't provide enough parking. And so, sorry, this area.
Yeah.
We've currently been showing this as 3 individual spaces, and that's what we're anticipating to keep in with the smaller shops and
Mhm.
the nature of the downtown area.
Mhm.
So,
Okay, we already talked about the fence. So the name of this development you're proposing is Kirkwood Apartments,
Yes.
not like Pittman Place or something, something.
We can always come up with a new name, but I think they want to first make sure they get approved, and then they come up with that creative name. That's
Well, like, I don't know, visioning helps sell things.
I've asked 5 times, what's the name? Kirkwood Apartments.
One next door, what used to be called before it was renamed the James, was what?
Kirkwood Flats.
Kirkwood Flats.
Oh,
yeah.
flats. Yep.
Just saying. This is maybe for Amy or for someone, the mayor. I just would love to see ARB get involved as early as possible in the exterior, the architectural design of this.
Absolutely.
So that they don't get too far down the road and maybe ARB or whoever says, huh,
Well, that's our next step. Certainly.
let's see, I would be remiss in not remarking that I believe the red oak on Kirkwood Road that's going to be removed, which has a 7-inch DBH, was put in 2010 by the local volunteer group 50 Trees. So I'm very sad to see that being removed. Just saying that. I think that's all that I have for now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Sears, anything?
I believe the presentation and the documentation was very clear, and I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Amy.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, George. Thank you all. Do we have anyone wishing to speak on this, David?
Mayor and council, we have a few requests for comment. The first one is from Philip Hutchinson.
Mr. Mayor, council people, thank you for listening to me. You know, people my age, you really ought to have a teleprompter up here. It's the new thing. My concern with the project is simple. It's too dense. You got 152 apartments, no owners, apartments, adding 60, that's 212. And with all due respect, your traffic people who say there's going to be minimal impact on roadways and intersections, I got a bridge to sell them. That just doesn't make sense. But I think I'll get used to the traffic. I'll reroute myself down Taylor and I'll work my way and stay off of Kirkwood Road. But my biggest concern is parking. And I appreciate the developers had made sure they didn't have one single extra parking space. I thought the code was the code, but now I found out the code is only 95% of the code. And what's that all about? The 1.5 times is not adequate. I live at 131 East Adams in a condo. We have 12 units with a lot of, let's say very mature people. And we've got 25 parking spaces, and right now there's a couple to spare, but I've been there when it's been completely full with some of the people not even driving. This is America. We like our cars. And I do not believe 1.5 with these young people likely to be in here, young couples, is going to be enough. And I was going to say, bad enough that 1.5, and that, I guess that that ship has sailed with whoever made the zoning rules. But they, in my opinion, violate the code at 86 for the residents. I mean, why would we let somebody come in here and pick the bare minimum? And if you're going to make the darn code 86, so people like me don't get all upset and wrapped around the barrel here. And only 22 for a restaurant. You know, restaurants have a lot of employees, and it better be tiny. That's for sure. And I think they're inadequate on that. And they mentioned in there that they'll have overflow onto Washington Avenue. That's already been taken by the Y. I mean, that street is all at busy times is at least half filled with people who can't get into the inadequate parking lot at the Y. So we're sitting in a part of town where we haven't had a parking problem, and we're going to create one, and we don't have to do that. I think they should come up with a lot more parking, or you ought not approve the project. And I haven't mentioned, what about the vendors? We've got 4, in addition to the 25, we've got about 6 spaces out front for cars, or maybe 4 or 5 if you've got the vendors there, and everybody has an HVAC truck, a plumber, electrician, they're there all the time. Where are they going to go for their parking? And the moving trucks, you know how many moving trucks going to be around that place? I wonder where they're going to go. In summary, you know, I think this is going to create a mess on traffic. I can figure that out. But if it's a mess on parking, I don't see the solution to fix it. I think it's a permanent mess. And I don't think that does fit the objectives of our wonderful town. So if you'll bear with me, I think we ought to listen to the wisdom of Warren Buffett when he was talking about, and he put this in his annual report, when he was talking about his very worst acquisition decision, which was Dexter Shoes. And he says, you know, acquisitions remind me of a country song by Bobby Bear. I never went to bed with an ugly woman, but I sure woke up with a few. I hope we don't wake up to an ugly parking situation that just does not have to be. Thanks for listening.
Rich Vandergrift.
Council members, my name is Rich Van de Grift. I, like Mr. Hutchison, live at 131 East Adams, which is the condo building shown just to the east of this proposed project. 2 years ago, when the previous project was for assisted living, which was denied, I asked for a meeting with individual council members. I met with 5 of them. I met individually with the mayor. concerning the fence that exists between between our property and the existing property, and asked that if it had to be destroyed, that it be replaced with a 8-foot chain link black vinyl coated fence, which is basically what we have today. And it today has a limestone continuous foundation, the full length of the proposed project. My concern about destroying that and replacing it with a new fence is not the fence itself, but destroying that foundation, that limestone foundation. It exists. Yes, it does have some loose stones in it that would have to be remortared. Mr. Ward is certainly familiar with it, having gone to the school when that fence was there many years ago. We have 5 different species of trees along that fence on our property, all very mature trees. Most of, maybe all of them are more than 50 years old, much older than our building is. If that fence is taken down and the limestone foundation is eliminated, those tree roots are going to be in jeopardy. They certainly grow underneath the fence. So as an alternative, rather than destroying what's there, I would ask that the fence and the limestone just be left as it is and repair what stones need to be remortared and not go to the expense of doing that. I've met with Jonathan on this issue briefly, and I understand the elevation of the roadway may cause, because of its closeness to the fence, may undermine that foundation. I don't know if that's the case or not. I know there is a little bit of landscaping in between. So I guess I would hope that it can be retained as it is. My other comment is regarding, as Mr. Hutchison has, on the amount of parking for this project. The 90, I understand, which is the code requirement, 1.5 for the 60 units. I don't think 20 for everyone else that comes and needs to be in that facility is adequate. You've got visitors coming to be with residents at times. You've got all the commercial visitors. You've got commercial employees. You have staff in that apartment building, I'm sure, a manager and a couple other people. They'll have maintenance people that'll have to be in that building to maintain appliances and air conditioning and furnaces in those units. Where are those people going to, all those people going to park? Those of you who frequent, and I know you all do, that intersection and the adjoining streets, there isn't any place for adding additional. Plus, we now are going to have another 152 apartments a block north, which is going to have a lot of demand on parking. It's not available on the streets. The Y doesn't have enough. They use the Presbyterian church lot. I don't know whether the bank is going to allow people to use their parking area when they're not open. I don't know where all these people are going to go. So parking is a major issue for this based on a number of apartments and anticipated residents. So I'd just like you to consider those issues. I am going to take an opportunity to meet with Mr. Stock and his staff and the architect to discuss how we can accommodate the fence. So I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Rich?
Carla Hickman.
Hi, my name is Carla Hickman. It's been a long time since I've been to a city meeting. I live in 1019 North Taylor. And yes, I prefer not to have the traffic come down my street. I am the walker. And I've enjoyed my walk from my house near Manchester all the way past the library to the farmer's market. There is not, I disagree. I don't know who did the traffic study. What additional traffic is going to be on the road with the new apartment buildings that are coming down the street, the new ones being proposed? Have any of you all ever sat during rush hour or 5 o'clock in the evening at the two lights between Washington and Adams, or at Washington and whatever the next street over is? I have, to cut through so I can miss traffic. I don't want North Taylor to become the road that people drive down to pass traffic, because it's going to come. So it's 100 additional parking spaces. Plus, I don't know what's coming in down the street. So how many cars is that going to put on the road? I don't know, but I'm going to say traffic's going to increase. So I hope they would go back and look at the traffic lights, the way they're signaled through the area, because it's going to back up. For the kids who cross the street, traffic. I had two who crossed streets, who went to high school, who went to the North Middle. Dangerous crossing the roads. So something needs to be considered. I again question the traffic at this point. Sure, it's not very bad. Well, you haven't taken into consideration the new apartments that are being built. So I'm concerned about parking on the street. I go to the Y, I see the parking. Again, I'm all for moving forward in progress. But is it too many apartments? Is it too much parking? Is it not enough parking? I don't know the answers, and I think it's a challenge. If you bring in new apartments, I think they need to match what's on the street. They need to match the new development. I think it needs to have some type of semblance together. I remember when they moved the house on the street, they didn't allow trees to be cut down. So it moved, they changed the side. They moved from one side of the street to the other side of the street. If we are that careful about the way we want our street to look, then I think we need to be equally cautious about how we want it to look with the new buildings that are going in. Again, if we said, hey, you can't move that to North Taylor because we don't want to cut down the trees, and you move it across the street, I think we have to be careful with what we're trying, who we're trying to be, and who we're trying to please. Thank you.
Dick Gordon.
Good evening. I'm Dick Gordon, Mayor, Council. This is the first time I've seen these plans tonight, so I had two architectural comments for the designers and the architects.
Hey, Dick, I'm gonna have to ask you, you're on ARB.
Yes.
So it's probably not appropriate for you to ask architectural questions
Understood.
tonight. Is that correct, John? Yeah,
All right, I'll refrain.
yeah. Thanks, Dick. Yeah, all right,
Mayor and council, there are no additional requests.
okay. Do we have any further questions from council? All right, seeing none. We have.
Question. I didn't know I was going to ask about the hearing. I came in for another purpose.
Oh, we've got, you'll.
Questions I now have. I'm William Winter, 44-year resident of the city of Kirkwood. Mayor, appreciate, and council, I appreciate you having this meeting this evening. One of my first questions was about the apartments. It looked to me like they're all single bedroom apartments. Is that correct? Are there other 2-bedroom apartments available? Both? 1 to 3 is the ratio. Okay. I was trying to eliminate part of this parking problem by having more than one person for each apartment. Also, it looks to me like from the pictures I've seen that we're losing some of our green space. It seems like even on not the main thoroughfares, but the rest of the area itself, when we add new buildings, new homes, we lose a little green space. And one of your pictures had trees growing all around this building, and then no other trees are available on this picture. Nothing, just sidewalk and no greenery. The one picture looked like it had a tree about every 10 feet. I liked that picture. Is that it?
Here, Bill.
Are those trees, those
replicas.
circles? Those are trees, those circles? They weren't on the other pictures. So I was getting afraid that we would no longer be considered a green tree city nationally. So those are my two questions, the one about green and the one about parking. I think I can solve your parking problem. That space you have in the middle of your building could be a multi-layered parking garage. Forget about the swimming pool. We have a swimming pool there at the Y if you want to go swimming. Put a multi,
I built her, direct us. will you?
Oh, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
Direct us, yeah.
I'm sorry. Like I said, I didn't even come to talk about this, but anyhow, there's your solution.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, William. All right. All right, with that, this public hearing is closed. We'll have the resolution for development plan approval at our next meeting, which is October 9th, is that the 19th? 20th, I'm sorry. And we don't call it preliminary approval anymore, but this is the development plan approval. But within 12 months, John, is that correct? A final site plan has to come back to the city council for approval. It has to be consistent with this, but some of the things were brought up tonight by us and residents can be, looked at during that period if the approval is made on October 20th. So thank you all. All right. We'll go to our second public hearing tonight, which is a request for a zoning code text amendment to add country club as a special use permit category in R1, R2, and R3 single-family residential districts. Mr. Hessel, do you wish to enter any exhibits into the record?
I would, Mayor. I'd offer as Exhibit 1, the affidavit of publication verifying notice of public hearing appeared in the St. Louis County. Exhibit 2 is the affidavit of publication verifying notice of public hearing appeared in the Webster Kirkwood Times. Exhibit 3 is a memorandum to the Planning and Zoning Commission from Amy Lowry. The subject was staff initiated text amendment, country club use definition and parking rate. I will note that the memorandum states in part that when the city adopted the new zoning code in February 2021, the term country club was inadvertently removed and only golf course remained as a special use. Exhibit 4 is the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Commission dated September 8, 2022, in which the commission recommended approval of a zoning code text amendment to add country club back as a special use permit category in R1, R2, and R3 single-family residential districts. Country club use was inadvertently removed from the zoning code adopted in 2021. And Exhibit 5 is the Code of Ordinances of the City of Kirkwood.
Thank you, John. Mr. Hawes, who will present this to the city council?
The City Planner 2, Amy Lowry again.
Good evening again. As Mr. Hessel stated, this country club use was inadvertently removed from the zoning code when we adopted it in February 2021. In the 2012 zoning code, we had country club or golf course as a special use allowed in R1, R2, and R3. Staff believes that the current golf course definition that we do have in the code isn't comprehensive enough to incorporate additional uses that a country club might have, such as dining facilities, swimming pools, tennis courts, and the like. So therefore, we initiated this with the Planning and Zoning Commission to reinstate golf course as a use with a definition and a parking rate installed. So the definition is suggested to be as followed: a club organized and operated primarily for social and recreational purposes, including premises, structures, or facilities used for meetings, dining, dancing, other social events, or recreational activities, including but not limited to golf, swimming, and tennis. If a golf course is provided, all requirements of a golf course shall apply. The reason we added that is if a golf course is required, then country club would have to have 75 acres. If there's not a golf course associated with that, then we don't have a minimum lot size. So this amendment would revise tables in the code to add country club as a special use in R1, R2, and R3 under the table for public institutional recreational uses. It would also add specific standards for country club to indicate that the minimum lot area has to be 75 acres when in conjunction with a golf course. And then it would also revise our parking table where country club would appear under public institutional or recreational uses. And the parking space requirements would be 1 space per 5 customers at the maximum building capacity, plus 1 space for every 2 employees. And that parking rate is the parking rate that we had under country club when it was in the previous zoning code. The criteria for a text amendment are four criteria to approve a text amendment. The proposed amendment is consistent with the comprehensive plan, other adopted city plans, and stated purpose of the code. The proposed amendment is necessary or desirable because of changing conditions, new planning concepts, or other social or economic conditions. Proposed amendment will promote the public health, safety, convenience, and general welfare, and the proposed amendment would correct an error in the application of this code as applied to the subject properties. Obviously, number 4 is the most important, that it would correct an error that staff identified.
Good. Thank you, Amy. Do we have questions from the council? I see one hand. Councilmember Litzo.
I was experiencing a bit of mind wandering while Amy was talking.
Oh, sorry.
I just want to confirm, it's not your fault. It's mine.
We're paying attention.
Okay.
I mean, the rest of us
Absolutely.
are, yeah.
Just her. You can just talk amongst yourself. Confirm that it's just basically putting back what was inadvertently left out, correct?
That is correct. And I think I did put in my sorry. In the introduction for this legislation, I did put that we do have just 1 country club in the city, and we just have 1 golf course in the city right now. So
Right. I mean, it basically.
But they are already operating under a special use
Right,
permit.
we're not
so-
inviting another country club. with
No,
golf course.
but I guess if somebody can aggregate enough land and
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
Confirm the other part that it's just basically putting back into the code what used to be there.
correct.
Okay, thank you.
Anything from council? All right. We have anyone wishing to speak on this public hearing?
Mayor and council, we do not have any requests.
All right, very good. William?
Appreciate the opportunity. I'm gonna have to come to more of these meetings. I'm learning so much tonight that I never even thought about before. Where's the space for a country club within the city limits of Kirkwood? Why is this? It's just because it was not in the original amendments that we're having to
Let me
put it in
ask-
there
yeah,
now.
It's normally not a question and answer, but what it is it was something that was there, but it was inadvertently left out, just the definition of country club. The only one we have is Greenbrier. So
Yeah,
it's
so
just correct, yeah.
there's no space for another.
No, but this
Okay.
just puts in that use.
I understand
as-
that.
Yeah,
See what I'm learning here
That's
by my attendance? Thank you.
all right. Well, with that, this public hearing is closed. This item will also be on for first reading at our October 20th meeting. All right. Now we'll go to regular public comments.
The public comments portion of the meeting is an opportunity for the city council to listen to comments from citizens. It is not a question and answer session, and the city council will not respond to comments or answer questions during this period. The mayor may refer any matter brought up to the city council to the chief administrative officer or city clerk if action is needed.
Thank you. Do we have anyone wishing to speak?
Mayor, we have a few requests.
Okay.
The first is William Fredericks.
evening, Mayor, Council, distinguished other administrators of the city of Kirkwood. The last time I stood before this body was over 25 years ago when I invited the at time mayor and council to join in a cold beverage after the council meeting at a restaurant that I had just opened on 123 West Jefferson Avenue. And it was quite a night. What I stand before you tonight to say is not as positive. I've just had an interaction with our city street department that I would not call positive. And I just want to let you know that we either have people within the street department that are blind or not wanting to open their eyes or unaware of things that are so obvious that it caused extreme damage to my vehicle. And I'm in the process of securing an attorney to sue the Union Pacific Railroad because the Union Pacific Railroad is responsible for the crossing on South Guyer Road, just south of Kirkwood Park. And the city street department could care less about anything that may happen with or about that crossing and anybody's vehicle or anything that could possibly happen there. So shame on the city of Kirkwood. Shame on the city of Kirkwood Street Department and the supposed superintendent who doesn't work apparently on Mondays, or his supervisors who apparently don't work on Mondays, or anybody else associated with the liaison with the Union Pacific Railroad who apparently don't work on Mondays. And shame on them. Shame, 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 shame. So sorry to vent this, but there you go. I mean, I've been a resident of this city at 645 Norfolk Drive for over 20 years, and I can't wait to get out of this town. Thank you very much for your time.
John Mullen.
John Mullen. I live North Kirkwood, north of Manchester, that contains Avery Park and the Montessori School in the way in the back. When I was told that they were going to be resurfacing the streets in our neighborhood, you could have pushed me down with a feather. So I just want to say, as opposed to the previous gentleman, thank you very much. It's good to see you all again.
Thank you, John.
Thanks, John.
And thanks for the new hat ornament.
John.
WM Winter.
Thank you again for this opportunity. I didn't mean to monopolize the mic this evening, but I did want to address to the mayor and the city council an announcement. As you know, I'm an advocate for the residents living in one of our subdivisions, namely Meacham Park, for the past 10 years. I've been an advocate and in support of them for that length of time now. And I'm also a member of their what's called the MNIA, the Meacham Park Neighborhood Improvement Association. I'm a member of that, even though I'm not a resident there. However, I wanted you all to be aware that we are bringing, I gave you a handout about this opportunity for us to bring a nationally known musician to attend the Performing Arts Center that we recently built, and that he's coming October the 28th, which is a Friday evening, to our community. I wanted you to know about this national jazz musician named Tim Cunningham, who will be here. And I just think the city should be glad to see that we're opening up our performing arts theater in this way. So that was my purpose for being here. I'm supposed to be home right now having my supper, but this was so interesting. I stuck around. Thank you again.
William.
Mayor and council, there are no additional requests for comment.
All right. We will then move on to consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion.
Got a motion, a second. Any questions or comments? All right, seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Say no. Let's go to unfinished business, Bill 10946.
Mayor and council, this is an ordinance amending chapter 16 nuisances, section 16-2 nuisances enumerated, section D6, defining hazardous or injurious tree limbs.
Any questions or comments? All right, seeing none, roll call, please.
Mayor Griffin,
Yes.
Councilmember Ward,
Yes.
Councilmember Zimmer,
Yes.
Councilmember Dewey,
Yes.
Councilmember Gibbons. Yes. Councilmember Lizzo. Yes. Councilmember Sears.
Yes.
Bill passes. Bill 10947.
Mayor and council, this is an ordinance amending and readopting the provisions of Appendix E, Personnel Rules and Regulations of the Kirkwood Code of Ordinances.
Are there any questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, roll call, please.
Mayor Griffin,
Yes.
Councilmember Ward,
Yes.
Councilmember Zimmer,
Yes.
Councilmember Dewey,
Yes.
Councilmember Gibbons. Yes. Councilmember Lizzo.
Yes.
Councilmember Sears.
Yes.
Bill passes. Move to new business, Bill 10948.
Mayor and council, this is an ordinance appropriating $5,000 from the Equitable Sharing Fund balance to the Police Department training account for additional training for the police department.
Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second. A motion is second. Any questions or comments? All right, seeing none, all in favor of first reading, please say aye.
Aye.
Say no. Bill passes first reading. Resolution 125, 2022.
Mayor and council, this is a resolution authorizing the chief administrative officer to enter into a collective bargaining agreement with the Eastern Missouri Coalition of Police, Fraternal Order of Police, Lodge 15 for police sergeants through March 31, 2025.
Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
There's a motion and a second. Any questions or comments? It is Councilmember Zimmer's first.
Oh,
Yeah.
sure. Thank you. Mr. Hawes, just, we had discussed this earlier, just, if you could kind of discuss, and this covers this resolution as well as the next one about, if there was anything of note, anything that came up that was of concern, during this process.
Well, I will say that the negotiations with the police union in both cases was quite amiable, and we came to an amicable resolution. I think there's always interest on both sides to, and I don't even like to use the term sides because we're all part of Team Kirkwood, but certainly union representation certainly has their own interests they want to get across. And I think we had a good, robust and fair discussion.
Good, but, you know, at the end, then compromise is achieved if there were any issues outstanding.
We have no issues with what we're signing.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Councilmember Gibbons?
I just was curious as to, find it interesting that the sergeants have a different union than first sergeants are there.
Sergeant, Dave, do you know how many sergeants are in the sergeant's union? Chris? 6. Thank you, Chris.
And this is something that's done on a yearly basis or?
Typically every 3 years.
Every 3 years.
Mhm.
Anything else? All right.
I'd like to just
Cool.
comment that we're struggling to keep and retain, attract and retain police officers. And I think that should be of great concern to us as a city.
Thank you, Councilmember Ward. All right, seeing nothing further, roll call on this resolution, please.
Mayor Griffin,
Yes.
Councilmember Ward,
Yes.
Councilmember Zimmer,
Yes.
Councilmember Dewey,
Yes.
Councilmember Gibbons,
Yes.
Councilmember Lizzo. Yes. Councilmember Sears.
Yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution 126, 2022.
Mayor and Council, this is a resolution authorizing the Chief Administrative Officer to enter into a collective bargaining agreement with the Eastern Missouri Coalition of Police Fraternal Order of Police Lodge 15 for police officers through March 31, 2025.
Is there a motion for approval?
Motion.
I got a motion and a second. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Mayor Griffin.
Yes.
Councilmember Ward,
Yes.
Councilmember Zimmer.
Yes.
Councilmember Dewey,
Yes.
Councilmember Gibbons,
Yes.
Councilmember Lizzo,
Yes.
Councilmember Sears.
Yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution 127, 2022.
Mayor and Council, this is a resolution amending Resolution 96, 2022 for the purchase of block power for the months of October 2022 and October 2023 in the not to exceed amount of $639,000 from AEP Energy for the electric department and authorizing and directing the Director of Procurement to issue a purchase order.
Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Is there a second? I got a motion, and a second. Any questions or comments on this?
I'd like to comment that I think that it's important that the residents of this community understand just how the natural gas prices are impacting us and the fact that there's no regulation of those. And, you know, under any other circumstance, it'd be considered price gouging, what's happening to us as consumers. And I think we need to make some efforts to reach out to the folks in Washington, DC who represent us to see if we can't get this reined in.
Yeah, there's a big story in the national news. I mean, the other night, I guess it was probably NBC Evening News. I mean, it's a big deal everywhere, yeah.
And it affects us directly.
Yeah, oh, yeah. Yep. Any other questions or comments? All right, seeing none, roll call, please.
Mayor Griffin.
Yes.
Councilmember Ward,
Yes.
Councilmember Zimmer,
Yes.
Councilmember Dewey,
Yes.
Councilmember Gibbons,
Yes.
Councilmember Lizzo,
Yes.
Councilmember Sears.
Yes.
Resolution passes. City Council reports. Councilmember Gibbons.
I just wanted to remind everyone that the Kirkwood Arts Commission is having their Making Music Fall Festival, Fall Harvest Concert this Saturday at Kirkwood Park from 2 to 4. And the band is Rosewood. And you're encouraged to bring your chairs and your snacks, and it's a family event. So that's one thing. And the next thing, I'm really sad to report, after all the work we did on Amtrak, they are going to have to temporarily suspend one of their trains eastbound and one of their trains westbound every day from October 24th to November 16th because of a shortage of available train equipment, which translates to they don't have enough people. It's an employment problem. They don't have enough people to take care and repair the trains. It's happening all over the country. It's Missouri's turn now.
Thank you. Can't tell.
Well, don't have anything to report, but I do have a comment. It's something that's concerned me now for 2 years, and I've spoken with members of the staff and the administration about the digital speed sign on Couch Avenue as you approach Robinson Elementary School. It has been obscured by the trees that have grown up and matured there, and we've got some attractive street trees there, and I don't want to cut those trees down. I've just asked that we have our own utility pole that sign's attached to. Put it on an arm up over the traffic lane so it can be seen all the way back to Big Bend as you approach it. I think that the earlier you see that speed and that you're exceeding the speed limit, the better the chances are that you'll behave as you move through the school zone. So I would hope that we can take care of that. And I'd also like to note that we obligate the police department to maintain those signs. That doesn't make any sense to me. That's a traffic signal, and our officers have much more important things to do rather than be responsible for digital speed signs.
Add to that, but
No, of course you can.
I was with Councilmember Ward the other day as we drove past it. I've been on that street so many times and never seen it. So
All right. Cool. Thank you. Anything? All right. Chief Administrative Officer report.
I have nothing to report, Mayor.
All right. City Attorney report. Nothing to report. Always good.
Always.
Always good. City Clerk report.
Yes, Your Honor, I'd like to report on the October fifth Planning and Zoning Commission. The following action was taken. The commission recommended approval of the final site plan amendment for a community unit plan at the Kirkwood Bluffs Apartments, 1157 Timberbrook Drive, for a new clubhouse, swimming pool, and parking lot. Also, after a presentation by staff and the petitioner for a zoning map amendment and a special use permit and major site plan for the construction of a new daycare on the properties of 10551 and 10557 Big Bend Boulevard, Commissioners Adkins and Scott were appointed to the subcommittee. The subcommittee will meet on the subject site at 8 a.m. on Monday, October 10th. And that is all I have.
Thank you, Kim. Next meeting of City Council is 7 p.m. 2 weeks from tonight, October 20th. This meeting is adjourned.